From bare stone and plain paper, the first outline of a chateau begins to appear. This is the first in another 3-part series, and in this episode we design and build the structure from paper. I start by making an interesting base. After that, I make a simple sketch to visualize what I have in mind. This chateau is a 16th century renovation of a much older structure, maybe belonging to a family of esquires. These were the lowest level of French nobility, and I want to make a humble little building with lots of charm instead of grandeur, like the kind you see all over France today. I'm an architect by trade, but rather than do a complete design before I start building, I very often on these models let the design evolve without any set plan beyond the initial sketch. I often also explore the design a little to begin with before circling back to the initial sketch. The main volume is a 3-story block, almost like an old keep. I offer it up to the terrain and start the process of trimming it to fit. Then I line up the corners with a ruler and start to sight it in to make sure the building is straight and true before I tack it in place with superglue. On the back side of the building there's just enough room for a small addition in the form of a square turret with a jettied upper story. The second volume of the building is a 2-story wing that sits lower on the main body, and together they form an L-shaped plan. The lower wing will have more windows than the main volume, and this is a subtle hint to the building's past. The upper part was once a keep with windows high on the wall, and the lower part was the living quarters. The reason for this layout is so that I can fit a massive old oak tree in the inner corner that dramatically overhangs the entrance path and gives a little shade to the upper courtyard. I also add a couple of buttresses to add some interesting features. Next up is to make a lower courtyard to make the entrance to the building. This will be a path of switchback ramps and stairs. These kinds of elaborate entrance sequences were designed to expose attackers to defensive fire. The meandering path is all that remains as a hint to the building's past as a chateau that was once a fortified structure. Fitting the wall of the courtyard to the base is a slow process of carefully cutting, bending and shaping the card to follow the terrain. At this point I've changed my mind about the addition to the backside of the building and I have removed it. The reason is that I don't think it fits with the overall design. You will see this a lot throughout my builds, adding and removing elements as the design progresses. As I fit the courtyard, I want to make an archway to enter it. Originally, I made a semicircular arch, but then I realized I need to lower the entrance by about 1 meter or 5 millimeters. So I discard it and make a new one with a segmental arch instead, as I think this suits the building better. This chateau is supposed to be a Renaissance remodeling of a medieval structure, and I show this by adding a few classical elements to the design. The segmental arch dates back to antiquity, and there are some lovely examples to be found in the ruins in Ostia, which was the port of Rome. Once the gate is in place, I start on the external entrance ramp. But first I have to extend the base with a couple of rocks, as there is too little space to work with. This ramp is set at a 90-degree angle to the archway. I could have just made an abruptly cut off path, but instead I make it parallel to the base. Again, a little hint to the building's past as a castle. I think it's fun to put some thought behind each design element, and I also think that it makes the result a much better model. Now I test fit the tree again to make sure the composition feels good. At this stage I decide to remove an entire floor on the keep, and I do this because the proportions would look much better with a lower building. I also remove the two buttresses, then I make a series of new ones, all to the same dimensions. Now it's time to make the cutouts for the windows. I carefully disassemble the building and start to mark out each window prior to cutting them out. Once each opening has been made, I cut out some 1mm acrylic, which I then set in place inside the walls with some superglue. When this is done, I reassemble the building and offer it up to the base, once again checking that it is straight and true before tacking it back in place with superglue. The next item on the agenda is to fit a small set of stairs from the lower to the upper courtyard. Once again, it's a process of slowly scribing, trimming, and fitting it in place. Now I have a lovely little path up along the side of the rock through an arch, which is all that remains of an old gatehouse, then a defensive switchback path up some stairs which were once a second gatehouse to the inner court and the main buildings of the chateau. finally time to start making the roofs. As you can remember from the initial sketch, I drew a variable angle roof with the lower part toward the eaves flare out. That break in the pitch is called a sprocketed hip roof, and it's quite common in French vernacular and chateau design. The reason is quite clever. The steep part of the roof drains effectively away water and snow, while the gentler lower pitch widens the eaves for better wall protection. I also settled on this shape because I think that it really looks quite nice. Now that the roofs are made, I fit all of the buttresses I cut out earlier. They are there to support the walls from lateral forces, and they also add periodically correct, visually pleasing elements to the structure. With them in place, I now construct a small hip roof for the gate. The final elements to be fitted are the chimneys, though these are just a couple of placeholders, as I will be constructing the real ones from fired clay bricks. And there we have it. The structure of this tiny chateau is finished. Next time I will make the windows, clad the walls, make chimneys and tile the roofs. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.